Let me grab great in great shape.
Awesome. Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I have another victim, by the way. Terry, I can't wait because he said he listened to this podcast and so he knows stuff, and so I'm excited about it. He's here, so that's a good thing. I didn't scare him. But I want to thank him for a couple of things that I know he's bringing that are very, very expensive, that I've come to learn of how valuable they are. The first is time. 24 hours has been given to every one of us. I had to learn how to respect and honor her. And once I start doing that, my perception changed, my values changed, boundaries began to become important. And so it will tell us a lot about you, how you honor and respect her. The other is the journey. Man, what a powerful creator it is. Why? Because it has created Terry. And we want to get into his mind, his mindset, his wisdom, his knowledge, and his insight so that we can become better human spirits while we're here on this place called Earth. Terry, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Well, Ken, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
And it's a pleasure. As you heard from listening, how do you serve mankind? And I ask that because it's a very serious question, but it's also very loaded. It makes one dig deep and see and express truly how they serve others. So how do you serve mankind?
Yeah, with my unique gifts and talents that I've been given to me by our creator. I write, I am on podcasts, I speak to groups, I have published books. And so all those at this point in my life, based on the cumulative fact of what I've experienced in my life, are things that I want to give back. You realize pretty quickly in life that life isn't about what you get, it's what you give.
Yeah,
And I've
yeah,
seen so many people, and I'm sure you have, Ken, too, that sort of feel like they're born empty. And that
yeah,
when they get out of school and get into life, whatever that looks like for them, that then their job, they feel, is to fill their empty self up. I got to get the
yeah,
greatest education and have the nicest job and drive the nicest car and have the latest gadgets and gizmos. And what I found is it's just the opposite. We're
yeah,
not born empty. We're born full. We're born with
yeah.
everything we need to be successful already inside us. We just need to pull it out and use it for our benefit. So, our purpose in life should not be to fill ourselves up. Our purpose in life should be to empty ourselves out with our unique gifts and talents, certainly for the betterment of ourselves, but also for the betterment of our families, our friends, our communities, and countries.
Absolutely, I believe 100% in that because I believe that's how the designer God had put this thing together so that we can serve each other out of our pain. Because when we do that, when we come out, we're familiar. And I believe that, Terry, the reason why, because when I speak specifically about my pain, there is a certain authority that I have because I understand it. I know what it does, how it works. And so when I am able to speak to someone, a group or whatever, or an individual about that specificness of what I went through, there is an authority that I have, one with knowledge, and that individual can know the difference that when I'm speaking the truth, I'm speaking from my heart, and they know it, they can sense it, they feel it, and they're able to receive much more than if I had just studied it in out of a book and try to stand up to talk with them because they'll look at me and go, "You have no experience," but when you went through it. So I'm honored that you are here to assist us through your insight and your wisdom as to all the way how you came out of there. Terry, one of our customs is to go back into one of the very first space that we visit as individuals when we hit this planet is the family unit. They labeled it the family, but to us as this little being, a bunch of strangers. And so we're here in this family with a bunch of strangers. What was your family like?
My family was great. I mean, I have two brothers. We were all athletes. We, I guess, to a point, still are athletes. And my mom and dad really taught us the value of family. of loving each other,
Yeah.
of caring for each other, of supporting each other. And my parents used to do what I call divide and conquer parenting, where I would have a game on Thursday night at 5 o'clock at this location, and my brother would have practice at 5 o'clock at another location. And so it was okay, dad's going with me and mom's going with my brother. And our whole family revolved around sports, revolved
Yeah.
around athletics. And I am still very close to my brothers. We're about 6 years apart, the three of us. And so we get together. A couple summers ago, they came to visit me. And Ken, we never left the house. We never turned the television on. And we spent 3 days telling stories, laughing and lying
Yeah.
to each other about things that happened. So it was a tremendous opportunity for me. When I was 13 years old, I was 6'5" tall. And I
Wow.
had a size 13 shoe, and my ears looked like Dumbo out of the Disney movie. And I
Yeah.
got teased mercilessly. And
Yeah.
if it hadn't been for my family, if it hadn't been for the support that they gave me, I threw myself into basketball. I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to get a scholarship to play in college, but it was okay, I'm being teased, I'm being bullied, I'm doing all this stuff. But my family's like, come on, let's go play ball. Let's go do something productive that I
Yeah.
could do with people that I loved. And like I said, people that cared about me, supported me, and got me to where I actually am today.
I love that you brought out that story, because I want to stop here, linger here for a minute, Terry, because it's important what you're saying, because you're having data from two different sources, if you will, from those outside of the family that are saying, hey, whatever names they're calling you, and you know how kids are, and then you have this other unit, this other place where you're getting data from, saying, wait a minute, let's go play some ball. Don't not even focus on that stuff. Now, Terry, how did you handle? You're in the middle now, receiving that data. Did you ever allow the data from the outside source to take precedent over what your family was saying to you? Did you allow it at any time? Because some people do, and some. How did you handle that?
I'm sure I did. I mean, I can't give you a specific
Yeah, yeah,
example of a time I did, but what I did with that ugliness, that bullying, is I used it as fuel. I used it as motivation to
yeah,
go practice the game of basketball. And the more I practiced, the better I got at it. And the better I got at it, the more I enjoyed it. And so it was sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was like stoking the furnace. I was
yeah,
putting in that what those people were calling me, the names and stuff like that. And it was building me up in another aspect of my life, instead of
yeah,
letting my entire life be torn down by what these young kids. And part of it is, I was good at basketball, and I'm sure part of it was jealousy. Yeah,
yeah,
you kind
yeah,
of you look freaky, you're tall, you
yeah.
got these big ears and stuff. So it was like, no, I'm going to use that as fuel to drive my life forward.
That is great, man. Awesome that you took it and use it, as you said, as fuel. One of the things from the onset that families, and let me tell you guys something about being in sports. Allow your children, give them the opportunity to participate in sport. If they are not leaning towards sport, allow them the opportunity to get into the arts. Why? Because those two pieces will prepare your child for much of their life later on, because it creates a mindset. When, as an athlete, you have certain mindsets, you've learned how to push beyond, and you can attest to that. They learn discipline in the sense of training. There's some hard work to get to certain levels. One that is in the arts, know that you have to apply yourself. The arts will activate the imagination, a beautiful, powerful tool you're going to need later on in life. The athletics will teach you mindset as to how to adjust, how to adapt, how to look at things, critical thinking skills, man. And both of those arenas, very important. Sports is not just sports. It's much more than that. Terry, you are excelling in basketball. You're taking this, turning it into fuel. All the log that they're giving to you with their negativity, you're taking it and just throwing it in there, and it is changing you and causing you to excel. As you're moving forward in your life and getting to the space that you feel comfortable with your skill set, as you're moving, how did you started looking, because you're getting all this fuel, how did you started looking at them while they were throwing more logs at you, and your ability in your sports is, how did you deal with all of that as you're getting better with them, and how were you adjusting, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I'm not emotionally mature enough, to really be thinking about it at that time. But I started to feel sorry for them. I
Yeah.
started to say, because like I said, my brothers and I, we all played college athletics. I have one brother that was drafted in the National Basketball Association. So yeah, I mean, we played at a fairly high level. And what
Yeah.
was necessary to get to that high level were the discipline, were the, well, I can't go do that now because I've got to go do this, and things like
Yeah.
that. And so you start to surround yourself with people that have the same goals, that have the same dreams, that have the same motivation and desires, and that just fuels you as well,
Yeah.
because you're hanging around. There's that old adage about you're the product of the five people you hang
Yep.
around with the most.
Sweet.
I was hanging around with people that wanted to go to college and play sports and do that kind of things, and all these other people, I started to feel sorry for them. It's like, I have a focus in my life. This is a goal I would like to achieve. I would like to
Yeah.
play college athletics. You have no goals. You have
Yeah.
nothing. You're just kind of muddling through life. And like I said, I started to feel almost sorry for them, because your ignorance, your calling me names and stuff like that, fueled me for this amazing goal.
Yeah.
Yet nobody's fueling you for whatever goals that you have in your life. So, in all honesty, I sort of started to feel sorry for
Wow, that's a powerful insight to have as a young man, realizing, as you're progressing in your life, looking back at those with the negative data and feeling some sadness to them. It's really a powerful imagery, if you will. So you mentioned that you got your scholarship and you're heading into college. When you got there, man, because that's a great achievement, you earned it. You a lot of work, you put in the work, you got there. Once you got there, Terry, how did you feel? Bring us into that day when you walk into that, that arena, the college, and you got there. How was it? How did you celebrate with yourself? What did you do? What were you thinking once you achieved that goal and you got your scholarship?
So once I got the scholarship, I was excited. Once it
Yeah.
actually came to fruition, I went to at the time, it was an all male military college in South Carolina called the Citadel. And it was still a
Hmm.
Division I, an NCAA Division I basketball program. But I'll be honest with you, Ken, I came this close to quitting.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this. I'm 1,000 miles from home. I've really never been home before, or away from home before. I'm scared. I'm lonely. All the things that people, when they go in the army, when they go away to school. I'm missing my family.
Yeah.
I'm missing my
Yeah.
friends. I'm missing my girlfriend. I'm missing all this kind of stuff. And my head gets shaved. I'm marching. I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute. I came here to play basketball, which was totally misguided. Totally,
Yeah.
that's really why I came here. And I was like, okay,
You volunteered. You volunteered, man.
I'm just going to quit. And so
Yeah.
I was literally walking over. I was going to get a full scholarship to college. I was
Yeah.
walking over to tell the coaches I was quitting. And I thought, well, maybe I'll stop by the student union and see if I have any mail. And I had a letter from my father. And I took the letter, I took it over to the field house. I went up into the nosebleed section, of the
Yeah.
seat, and I tore open this letter. And it was a 7-page handwritten letter from my father that
Wow.
basically said, pull your head out of your butt, because you are focused totally on you. You can't see the big picture here. He said, you've called home 7 times, and not
Wow.
once have you asked how your grandmother is, how your brothers are, how your girlfriend is. How, you are so focused on you. Basically, it was get out of your way or you're going to self
Yeah.
destruct. Ken, by the time I finished reading that letter, I was in tears. I
Yeah.
knew there was no way I could quit. I folded the letter up, took the handkerchief out, wiped my eyes, and went
Yeah.
back to the barracks. And 4 years later, I was lucky enough to be there with my parents and graduate. And I was the first person in my family to actually graduate from college.
Wow, man. Congratulations on that. I know how that feels to be the first. So here you are, Dad redirected you, if you will. When he did that, what triggered in you where, you see, you can't let them down. That's great, but something internally happened. And now you have to begin to do the part, do the requirements, the job, the work, if you will. Something internally had to click to snap you. What was that? What did it look like when you were, talking to yourself about it? When it's made you snap out of that stupor, if you will?
Yeah, what else was in the letter was what my dad reminded me of. I had had 3 knee surgeries in high school, and the
Yeah.
first 2 were pre-arthroscopic. And my second one,
Wow.
I was put in a cast from my hip to my ankle for the entire summer and told I would never play basketball again. And yet I was
Um,
able to get a Division I basketball scholarship
okay.
despite
Yeah.
all that. And that's
Impressive.
what my dad reminded me. It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
You've been through a whole lot more difficult times in your life. You can't see that. You're not focused on that. You're so microcosm on this is, I'm only looking at life through this small little lens. He was basically like, you've been there. You've been through this.
Yeah.
You've been through difficult times. Take what you learned when you were in high school, take what you did in high school to get you to where you are now and apply it to the situation you're facing now in college. And he was right. I had totally forgotten about knee surgeries and everything I
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
back. But now it's no, use that. You know what to do. Use that and get back to work. And that's really what it was like, get back to work. You're there to play
Yeah.
basketball. You're there to get an education, get that job done. And that's really, he kind of refocused my efforts, I guess.
Yeah. And once you were refocused and you began to look at, okay, I'm here, Dad, kind of snap me out of this, and you are moving forward in your life, Terry. Talk to us as to how did you start to, because one of the things that he admonished you about was that the selfishness, the self-focus on you, and no one else. Once you did that, how did you start to relate to those on the outside that were around you, your teammates, your fellow guys that are part of the school? How did you start relating to them once Dad kicked you in the butt, if you will?
I knew I had gifts. I knew I had skills. I knew I could be and was a leader. And so it
Yeah.
was instead of sort of sitting in the back of the room and watching, it was like, no, get into life.
Yeah.
Sit in the front of the room, lead by example.
Yeah.
We talked a minute ago. It's not, if you and I are just talking, that's one thing. But if you and I can talk the talk and walk, that's credibility. That gives you
Yeah.
credibility with other people. And I knew I was like, look, I've overcome injuries. I'm playing Division I college basketball. I'm playing against Michael Jordan. I'm doing these things that when you're doing them, you're not thinking about it. But when you
Yeah.
sort of step back, it's like, oh my God, look how
Yeah.
fortunate I am. Lead by example, help people. And that was really, I went into law enforcement. My brothers are both in education. Our whole family has been about service, about
Yeah.
caring for each other, about helping people and things like that. So it was now, okay, you've overcome this. Now start being a leader. Now get out there
Yeah.
and make things happen.
Yeah, that is awesome. Sometimes you just have to talk to yourself. You just have to motivate yourself. There are periods in time that people tell me, it says, you got to be aware of someone who talk about themselves or talk to themselves. I'm like, are you kidding me? I did it all the time. I would, especially like on my birthday, Terry, I would go sit down, take myself to a restaurant of some, of choice and sit down and have this really in-depth conversation with myself. What did you do right? You feel you did right for that year? What did you feel you did wrong? What do you, looking back, what do you think you should have done? How are you going to approach? I mean, I had this while I'm eating this food on my birthday. I did this every single year, and I tell people, spend some time, man, and probe yourself, and you'll get some really interesting response from yourself. So here you are, Terry. You recognize that, hey, I have some abilities. One of those is leadership. Let me get out there and begin to show this quality to others, and move through my life. When you graduated that from one of the first in your family that graduated from where you were, how did, first of all, with your schoolmates, your those guys, how did they look at you being a leader? As you said, you began to step out and began to lead. How did they look at you? And I know how mom and dad and your family looked at you as far as being proud, but how was that relationship with the others that were around you? What was that like when you guys were standing shoulder to shoulder on that day?
Yeah, I was very honored. I was chosen by the senior class, by my class, to win the senior class sportsmanship award, which there's a plaque in the field house, and my name is on that. And the first person on that is a man by the name of Pat Conroy, who was a prolific author and has written numerous books. His books have been turned into movies and things like that. And I thought, what an honor to have my classmates, 500 of my classmates say, we think you're the epitome of what sportsmanship looks like. So I was very grateful. Again, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm living in Chicago at the time. So I left those guys. I left and ended up going back to Ohio to get my first job out of college. But I still have relationships with them. I still have relationships with the coaches. It's a bond that I think when you go through adversity in life, you go through difficulty, just like if you go to war with people and things like that, you have a bond. That bond is solidified, and you use that, you keep those things together because you have a common interest. You have survived something that I just didn't go to college. I went to a military college, so it wasn't basketball and going to school. There was that third leg of the stool, which was the military part of it.
Yeah.
So when you go through that difficulty, you emerge with, and we all get, you get a ring, you get a gold ring at the end of it. And I've been all over the United States, and I see people with the ring, and there's an instant bond because we know we've shared experience.
Yeah, that is awesome, man. I love that because I tell people, man, when you achieve things, you got to learn how to celebrate it. One of the things that people miss out is the celebration of their achievement, Terry, and one of the things that Terry had said, that when he began to step into his gifts, his ability, he recognized he's a leader. Your gifts and your ability will make you or give you recognition from others. It is the natural progression of things as you begin to be yourself. And because when you are your true self in that sense, and I'm telling you, people recognize it and they will honor you for it. So begin to learn how to step in, identify what that is. Terry had to identify what that was. He recognized that he had some leadership skills. He's been through some stuff. He knows that hard times will mold you, and he began to step in. And as he stepped in, he was rewarded. So many of you guys are out there. You need to just take that step. So here you are, Terry. You graduated. You got your stuff, mom and dad, and all proud of you, and your family, your brothers. I know I have brothers as well, and how that conversation is, and all the rough stuff. And you got your first job. You said you went into law enforcement employment, and being in that space, man, I'm sure you were exposed to some of the most beautiful behaviors of mankind, if you will. So here you got into this space, and you're now there, Terry. When you got there, what was your baseline motto, the reason why you did that? What was it that drove you and pulled you towards that aspect of life?
So my grandfather, my dad's father, had been a Chicago police officer from 1924 to 1954, and was actually
Hmm.
shot in the line of duty with his own gun in 1933. Now my dad
Oh,
was a year old at the time, and so he doesn't remember the actual event, but he remembered the stories that my grandmother told of that knock on the door of, Mrs. Tucker, grab your son, come with us, your husband's been shot. So when I expressed an interest in going into law enforcement, my father was absolutely not. You're going to college, you're going to major in business, you're going to get out, get a great job, get married, have 2.4 kids, and live happily ever after. But that's the life my father wanted me to lead. That's not the
yeah,
life I felt I was supposed to lead. And Ken, when I graduated from college, my grandmother, who was living with us, and my father were both dying of different forms of cancer. And so
mm,
I had probably one of the first big decisions of my adult life. I could have said, "Hey, Dad, I know you're dying. Sorry, I'm going to go blaze my own trail. Or
yeah,
of love and respect for you, I will do what you want me to do." So my first two jobs out of college, I was in the marketing department at the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain. That was my
yeah,
first. And then I switched and went to work for the hospital that cared for my father and my grandmother. And I sort of joke. I said, I did what every good son did. I waited till my father passed away, and then I
yeah,
followed my own dreams. So I was a
yeah,
37-year-old rookie police officer, which by most accounts is pretty old to be getting into that line of work. But I felt it was my purpose. And Ken, of all the things I've done in my life, that's one of the things I'm most proud of, that I never
yeah,
let my dream die. That
yeah,
it took a while to get there. It didn't happen immediately. Like I said,
yeah,
37 years old, but I knew it was my purpose. And as much as I was comfortable and making good money as a hospital administrator, it wasn't in my heart. It wasn't in my soul.
yeah,
So I made that shift at 37, certainly with the support and the love of my family to be able to do
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's important to do things that you love and you have the passion. I worked in healthcare and in management as well, and I would have to assist with the onboarding of new employees. And I would get there, Terry, and I would tell them, I said, I'm going to find out shortly who you really are, whether you are here for the money or you're here for the love of taking care of people. I said, time will expose you, but you will expose you. And so they would look at me, and then a couple of weeks later, you know who was who, because it manifests your behavior, your mindset will manifest because if you are in it for the passion, how you take care of those people will be seen. It's something tangible. The people, and if you're there for the money, it's also tangible that you can watch because you'll disrespect those folks because they're not, you don't have that same value as someone who loves and respects and honor them. And usually when we spot those, we would, just let them go because in that we worked in a skilled nursing facility, you can't go there for the money. You got to go there for love and honor and respect because you are being afforded the opportunity to take care of some of the most treasured uh, folks on the planet. And so we would get rid of them quickly because in a couple of weeks, once they identify themselves. So here you are. You had this passion, and Terry said, don't let your dream die. Time is on your side. Just chill. You have the family, the kids are going to grow up. You can still go after that dream of yours. I've known people that graduated after great grandchildren, so don't give it up. Just go after it because it'll give you a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. Terry, you got your 37-year-old. You're now in a field, as you said, you feel at home. As you are home, Terry, how did you begin to feel as an individual, as a man now in something that you put aside to please your dad, but now this is where you belong in your belief system? How was it? How did you feel?
I felt excited. I mean, I couldn't wait to get up and okay, I get to go do this. I get to go do something that I love. I get to go do
Yeah.
something that is important to me, that is making a difference, that is hopefully making a positive difference in people's lives. And so I was excited. I couldn't wait. I mean, I started, and I'll tell you this quick story. My wife and I were living in Santa Barbara, California, and I got a circular in the mail for Santa Barbara City College. And it said, if you take this class, you can apply to be a reserve police officer with any jurisdiction in the state. And so
Yeah.
said to my wife that night at dinner, I'm like, would you support me for this? She's like, yeah, go ahead, take it. Take the class. I took the class. I got on with Santa Barbara PD. And at the time, I was a customer service manager for an academic publishing company. So I would work
Yeah.
my regular job all week. I would come home Friday night. I would put on my uniform. I would go to roll call and I would work all night. And then I would
Yeah.
come home Saturday morning. And my wife tells the story better than I do. But she said, you would come in exhausted, but with this big smile on your face. And she said,
Wow.
I knew that's what you were supposed to do. And so when our daughter was born and we moved to Cincinnati, I looked at her and I said, look, the bug has bitten me. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Will you support me? And she absolutely did. So, like I said, I loved it. I mean, let me put a caveat on that because there's nothing perfect in the world. There's no perfect
Yeah.
family, no perfect relationship. There's no perfect individual. There's no perfect job. I love
Yeah.
being. I hated standing on a traffic post for 12 hours in the middle of the summer with 20 pounds of equipment. So
Yeah.
understand that overall, I love the job, but there are always aspects of certain things that you wish you didn't have to do, but it's just part of the work.
Yeah. It's just part of living. This teacher that said to me, "Let life disturb your comfort." And life has a way, Terry, of really disturbing our comfort from time to time. Just show up and just beat the heck out of us, and then you have to deal with it and make the adjustments. So here you are. You got in. Your wife is making the declaration and bringing to your attention that you got this grin on your face. One of the things that you are exposed to is behavior of individuals when you are a police officer. You get all range of behaviors because I know it's going to lead you to your book and all these things. Being in that space, in that arena, talk to us as some of the principles, Terry, that you started to pick up dealing with all of these different personalities, all of these different situations.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you kind of have to understand. You mentioned you were in healthcare, and as I was, when you're around sick people all day, you tend to think that everybody's sick. Well,
Yeah.
everybody's not sick. The vast majority of people are a healthy individual. Same thing in
Mhm.
law enforcement. You're dealing with the criminal element. You're dealing with sometimes pure evil and things like that. And you tend
Yeah.
to think if you don't check yourself that the world is like that. No, the world's not like
Yeah.
that. Most people are good, kind, decent, caring, loving people. And you want to make a difference. And I'll never forget when I was in Santa Barbara, I said to one of the officers I was riding with, I said, this is great. We get to make a difference. And he looked at me with this like scowl on his face and was like, difference? We're not making a difference. He's like, this is just like the finger in the dike thing. We spring a leak, we put our finger in it so the leak doesn't. But then another leak springs out over. He said, we're not making a difference. I
Yeah.
disagree with him. I think we were. And I'll give you a story. So my partner and I, we worked a really bad area, a lot of guns, a lot of dope, a lot of violence. And there was a guy who kind of hung around with the drug dealers. Didn't have a criminal record. He used to drive without a driver's license, which was a misdemeanor or the first degree in Ohio, but a decent guy and a smart kid. And so one
Yeah.
night, we roll up on the dope boys and they all kind of scatter and we grab this guy and we handcuff him, we put him in the back of our car and we take him up to the tennis courts behind the high school. And
Yeah.
I'm sure he's like, what the heck is going on here? So we get him out, we unhandcuff him. We're like, all right, listen to us. Don't say anything, just listen to us. You owe $500 to get your driver's license reinstated with the state. My partner and I are willing to pay that for you. We've also arranged for an individual to help you get your GED. He had not graduated from high school. And we've
Yeah.
also arranged for an individual on the other side of town to get you a job. Now, if you keep hanging around with these dope boys, you're going to end up getting caught up in something that is going to affect you for the rest of your life. We're giving you an opportunity. We're giving you a way out.
Yeah.
Do you want this? And Ken, what do you think he said?
Yeah.
He said no.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
about 18 months later, he ended up being involved in an armed robbery and is now a convicted felon and was doing time in the state penitentiary. But
Yeah.
you wanted to at least try. Look, I'm going to
Yeah.
give you an opportunity. I can lead you to water, but I can't make you drink. So
Yeah.
it was things like that that, can we make a difference in these kids' lives? Can we make a difference in these people's lives? That's why I love being a police officer.
Yeah, and as I know from our conversation, that I'm sure got inside and was causing some disturbance within you as an individual as to, wanting to help. And so there are days, and again, you have to, that question is always going to locate them. Do you want, and what do you want? And so when they answer, that's exactly what they want. So, but you have to ask that question. Once that happened, Terry, and you're in your quiet time, you're thinking about it. What started to dance inside of you as to wanting to figure out a way? How can I now make a difference? What was it that started to dance inside of you? Because I know that that will be a disturbing thing for a little while, and it resides there, and it will start to grow, if you will, as to how can I become more effective? What was that conversation you were having within yourself, and where did it lead you to?
I mean, the conversation was, how can you make a difference? How can, is it true, like that officer in Santa Barbara who told me that we don't make a difference? We're just trying to
Yeah.
hold the water back. Or can you actually make a difference? Can I change the world? No. Can I change my little piece of it? Maybe. And that was really kind of what I was thinking about, where I was going with this. And, first responders have a higher propensity for divorce and drug abuse and alcohol abuse. And
Yeah.
things like that. Where my sanctuary was my family. And
Yeah.
that was, I'd have a bad night or something would go wrong, and it's like, hey, we're going out for a drink after work. You coming? No. I love
Yeah.
you guys and I'd lay down my life for you, but I'm not coming to the bar with you. I'm going home.
Yeah.
My family. And so it certainly made me appreciate what I had with my family and things like that. But it was also, where can I make a bigger impact? Where can I make a bigger difference? And one of the things that, that I learned in law enforcement was, if I pull you over for running a stop sign or giving you, speeding or whatever it is, that may be the scariest thing that happens to you all year. But for
Yeah.
me, it's the third traffic stop of the night. So it's putting things in perspective and understanding that this is terrifying for this individual. For me, this is my job. This is what I do.
Yeah.
I do it every night. And realizing that I don't have to be a jerk. I mean, I'm 6'8", and at the time, with everything on, probably about 240 pounds.
Yeah.
And get tried very often. But I didn't need to be. I didn't need to be a jerk. I was doing a podcast the other day and I talked about how, if you start here, if you start way up here being a jerk, you don't leave yourself anywhere to go. I mean, if you start connecting with people on a human level and then they want to take it to another level, yeah, I can certainly do that. But why would you start there? And so it's understanding the dynamics with people and your relationship with them and how you can take maybe a bad situation and make it a little bit better for them in their lives.
Yeah, I have a great amount of friends that are officers, and so we'd have conversations and stuff like that. And a lot of them, just as you said, they will look. They say they pull up on a situation. They know that most people, this is a traumatic situation for them, and they are just in total trauma. And so, recognizing that, they know that they have to go in and begin to calm them down, began to, and I know you guys learn how to become really astute in human behavior. You have a couple of seconds to make some adjustments and decisions. And so these guys would tell me that being a police officer is being on the front line of learning human behavior. And as you learn that being on the front line, Terry, and you have this desire to serve, how did it lead you to this aspect of your life of putting the book together and all those different things? How did it lead you from that, going in the blog and all the different things that you started? What was it that started to probe you and cause you to reach outside and say, hey, let me do this in my life? What was it?
Again, I think, as I mentioned, our whole family, my brothers and I, our life has been about wanting to serve, about wanting to
Yeah.
make this world a better place. And really what got me, to start writing and to start writing a book and to do podcasts and things like that was I am constrained. I mean, I'm in a wheelchair. I have tumors in my lungs. I do not have a left leg. My left leg has been amputated because of my cancer journey. And I never wanted to write a book. I never expected to
Yeah.
write a book. There's kind of an old joke that says when we talk to God, it's called prayer. When God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So God never told me to write. But what I think God did was put enough people in my path that were like,
Yeah.
you should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book. And I think I'm smart enough that when those things occur, that I need to pay attention to those. And so it was, I'm limited in my mobility, but what can I do? I could
Yeah.
sit around on the couch and watch Netflix all day, but is that really serving anybody? It's certainly not serving me. How
Yeah.
can I find a way to serve other people? So I had started a speaking business, and this is the honest truth. I started a speaking business just as COVID hit. And like so many other companies and individuals, I had to find a different way to deliver my service. And somebody reached out to me and said, would you like to be a guest on my podcast? And Ken, I looked at him and I'm like, sure. What's a podcast? I had no idea what and he explained it to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a try. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And I had Post-it notes all around the camera. He would ask me a question, I would lean in, I'd read the. I'm terrible. I was horrible. I provided no value to the audience. So I read that book, and I was like, but I might be able to get good at this. I might enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I thought, first time I ever drove a car, was I good at it? No. First time I ever cooked a meal, I think I burned the water. The first time I ever studied algebra, I was not good at it. So it was, are you going to make a commitment to do this? And now, several years later, I've probably been a guest on almost 700 podcasts around the world.
Wow.
And it's an outlet for me to be able to serve without really being able to leave my house.
Yeah. That is, I love that story. Yeah, Terry, you just had me cracking up. So here you are, and I tell people, man, it's such a joy. It's a different, I have friends that are multimillionaires, and these guys have gained so much and got so much, yachts, touring the world, doing all this stuff. Then when I talk to them, they're sad, they're just miserable until they found their assignment, that passion, that thing that caused them to flip over to become a servant. They have accumulated everything. These guys, the conversation now, when I talk to them about servanthood and they tell me their stories, because there's so much that they get from going out and giving. I have a friend of mine that him and his wife were touring the world with their yacht and whatever, and they would get off at different ports and they would be buying tons of food and carrying it to the poor. When you're having conversation with him, you see this grin on his face. Before, when he wasn't doing any of that, it was just misery. And I always tell people, hurry up and find whatever it is. I used to tell my kids, find your passion and be passionate about it. It will sustain you. It will give you strength. It will give you courage. It'll give you honor. It'll do all of that. But you have to find it. And once you find it, you'll be okay. And here you had an opportunity. The guy said, God opens door, man. Podcast? What is that? And so once he did that, your commitment, those principles that mom and dad had instilled in you when you were a young man, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this right. You ask yourself that question, and then you jumped in and you began to do it. So when you began to, because now you have time in a sense of you are now able to process thoughts and begin because of your situation. How did you, everyone was telling you, and no, God is leading you in that direction, write the book, because he deposited a lot of stuff inside of you that got to come out. When you began to, when you agreed with him and say, okay, I'll get it out. What was that situation that caused that agreement that came up into your life, Terry, that say, okay, I surrender, I'm going to go ahead and do this?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize this at the time, but as I look back on it, the book was really born out of two conversations I had.
Yeah.
One of the jobs I had after law enforcement I was a girls' high school basketball coach when we lived in Texas, and I'd had one of my players who I coached had moved to the area in Colorado with her fiance, where my wife and I lived, and the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was living close and I could watch her find and live her purpose. Ken, she got real quiet for a while. And then she looked at me and she said, well, coach, what do you think my purpose is? And I said, I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth, and there is a reason, using your unique gifts and talents and living that reason. So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man from college who reached out to me on social media and said, what do you think are the most important things I need to learn, not to just be successful in my job or in business, but to be successful in life? And I didn't want to give him the, get up early, work hard, help others. I didn't want to give him sort of the cliches that we already know. And I'm like, well, let me think about this. And so I started to take some notes, and I kind of had these 10 thoughts, these 10 ideas, these 10 principles. And so I sent him the principles. And then I stepped back and I was like, well, I got a life story that fits underneath that principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates this principle. So literally during the 4 to 5 month period where I was healing after I had my leg amputated, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories, and they're real stories about real people underneath each of the 10 principles. And that's how sustainable excellence came to be.
Wow, that is a powerful, powerful story. And you guys, you know how I feel that has been listening to this conversation. You know how I feel about books, because I believe they house power. They house the ability to change you. But when you come to a book, I always tell them, when you come to a book, don't come to it like you're reading a quick article. Come to it with a purpose. Come to it wanting to experience change. And trust me, when you come that way, change will meet you. Meaning you have to get in your comfort zone, get your cup of tea, get your chocolate, whatever you get, and find your comfort and begin to read, because those words will leap out. They have the ability to leap from those pages, jump straight into your inner man and ignite him and cause him to wake up and begin to make changes. That's the power that is within a book. And you guys are listening to us with Terry and I have this conversation. And I didn't even go into any of the battles that he had with cancer and stuff like that, and the mindset to come out of that. That's in the book. I want you guys to get the books. Get gifts, guys. Give gifts, books as gift to people, that friends and family that are going through some hard times. You know, all of us have hard times, but give a book to someone and have them, get a chance to sit down and read something that has power within it to transform their life. And Terry's book has it, and I want you guys to get it. And, one of the things that I do is I purchase them myself, and I keep them because I want to be able to give them as a gift. I try to practice what I preach. I'm going to pick one up as well. So Terry, talk to us now that you had an opportunity to write the book. That in itself is a lot of challenges and stuff like that, depending on one's personality. If you have those perfectionists, they don't want to let go of that book for months because someone has to smack them in the head, don't let it go. So how did you were able to give birth to it, the process of putting all of it? How was the birthing of it, and how did you accomplish that?
So I didn't know how to write a book. I
Yes.
had no idea. And so I said, okay, I'm going to have to set up some parameters, some rules. And so I came up with two rules. I said, I will write one page, a minimum of one page every day for 6 days. I'll take Sunday off. Monday through Saturday, I will write at least a minimum of one page. And I will not edit. This is the other rule. I will not edit
Yeah.
until I have at least the first draft done. And Ken, there were days that I would sit down at the computer and I would write absolute garbage. Like, this is terrifying. It's never going to be in a book. But then the next day, it would be something better. And then the next day may be garbage. And then the next day. So eventually I had this sort of conglomerate of pages. And then it was, once the draft was done, okay, that's out, that's out, that's out.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend of mine who I said, I don't know how to go about getting this published. And he turned me on to a guy who had a similar background in terms of law enforcement. He said, I know this guy. He said he was a drug investigator. He was the police chief in Thibodaux, Louisiana. And kind of a funny story. He said, one of my friends said, would you come out to California and put on a presentation for authors who want to understand police tactics so they can incorporate them in their books? And he thought, yeah, sure, great. I'll go out to California. Somebody's paying him for a trip for me. Well, he goes out there and he ends up meeting his wife. And his wife is at least a 50-time best-selling New York Times fiction author. He gets out of law enforcement. They start a not-for-profit publishing company. And so I get hooked up with him. I send him the manuscript. I'm like, are you interested? And he came back and he's like, yes, absolutely. So I was lucky. I had, people that designed the cover. I had 3 or 4 different editors. You talk about, you write a book. Obviously, I've never had a baby, but you write this book and it's the closest I've ever come to having a child. And the editors, and they're like, well, you should take this out. And I was almost indignant. It was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Dare you tell me how to write my book? These are professionals. These are specialists in what they do. And I always used to tell them, well, let me sleep on it. Let me see how I feel about it in the morning. And Ken, 99.9% of the time, I did what they wanted me to do. That was what they were good at. Why was I, having no idea how to write a book about that? And so it was just such a great experience for me to have really kind of a microcosm of what a publishing company would do for you. Wasn't self-published or anything like that. And they found all kinds of errors and grammar, and let's lay this out differently. And I think it's a better book because professionals laid eyes on it. And now I'm writing a second book. And so it's like, well, hopefully I can use Scott and Leah and their company again to do the second book.
Excellent. Give me Scott and Lee's link, and I'm going to put it in your show notes so that we can afford others the opportunity that be able to reach out. And any one of you guys that have a book hidden in you and you've been contemplating it and all that type of stuff, we'll provide that so you guys will have access to them. I love promoting folks like that. One of the things that I love about how when we surrender, how God puts everything in place. He had this other man, the law enforcement person, went to a presentation, meets his wife and all that stuff. Just waiting for you, Terry.
I don't know if it's just me, but certainly me and several other people. And it's, he's a great guy. Great. He's started his own church now and stuff like that. So he's growing in his faith as well.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, the walk of faith is one of the simplest thing if we understand it. It becomes clearer once we surrender. Like we had to make the decision. Okay, I'll do it. And then you start putting the pieces. You don't know all the info, but what has happened, God was putting some stuff behind the scenes, a situation that will bring your benefit in it. I'll give you guys a story and then we'll close on this about the walk of faith. I'm busy. I'm studying, actually, Tara, studying faith for about a year.
Okay.
So God is, of course, watching me and showing me all the insights and stuff like that. So now this particular day, he was going to show me how it works. So I forgot I forgot, I was so busy at work, I left home and I forgot my wallet. I changed pants, that's what happened. I changed pants, put it out, and I left my wallet, went to work, no problem. Coming back, I realized I have no gas. I am out of gas, my car. And I looked and I said in prayer, I need the angels to push me into this gas station so I can, figure it out. I'm telling you, Terry, I felt the car because it started slowing. I felt it moving. As I get to the gas station, I made a turn to come in right. I saw a man coming in his car on fire. His engine is smoking. I'm pulling in next. I'm sitting in there. He pulls in and he is on the phone, panicking. I hear him talking about how he can't make his interview. Now, God, I'm studying faith and the walk of faith. And God is telling me, I want you to go and talk to him. Tell him that if he put gas in your car, you'll take him to his appointment and stuff like that. And he'll be provided. Faith. I'm studying for a year and a half, I think it was. I was too chicken to get up. Now, who knew what type of friends I could have? I remember going to call my dad and tell him to come, but God is instructing me that that's what faith is. Faith is you just being obedient, God orchestrating all the pieces behind the scenes to fulfill my need. But I still have to make the decision whether I want to walk by faith or if I'm going to walk by faith and let fearfulness steal my joy and my victory. I let fearfulness and pride steal my joy that day. And so I encourage all of you guys. It's easy. It's not as crazy as the religious people tell you that it is. It's really easy. You just have to be obedient. That's the key. So Terry, here you are. You're obedient. God provided all your people, your team to put your stuff together. You said you're writing a second book. What is it that God has stirred up in you now and says, I need you to give birth to this? What is it that he has been talking to you and you have been in communication with him that he says, Terry, I need you to give birth to another?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, kind of like you said, there are experiences that are in our lives that are there to teach us something, whether
Yeah.
it's, your fear of meeting an individual you didn't know, or my fear of writing a book. I'm like, I'm not an
Yeah.
author, are you kidding? And I'll never forget this. So when I had my leg amputated and found out I had these tumors in my lungs, about 6 months later, my doctor showed me my CAT scan. And I don't know, I have no medical background. I don't know how to read a CAT scan, but you can kind of look at it and be like, that sure doesn't look like it belongs there. I had these my lungs, I had fluid all around the pleural spaces. I was coughing up green, bloody phlegm. And I remember looking at my oncologist and saying, how was I alive? And Ken, I will
Yeah.
never forget this until I die. He put his head down, he shook his head no, and then he looked up to me and he said, I don't know because you shouldn't, which
Wow.
said to me that God's not done with me. When I die, where
Yeah.
I die, how I die, way above my pay grade. Don't spend a lot of time worrying about the dying, spend more time
Yeah.
focusing on the living. And
Yeah.
when I was diagnosed 12 years ago, I was told I'd be dead in 2 years. So obviously,
Wow.
God's not done with me. I still
Yeah.
have things to do. And I am open to those things. It's like, God, you gave me gifts and talents. What do you want me to do? And
Yeah.
my first book is about success. What I
Yeah.
believe people can use sort of a blueprint to success. This next book is also about a word that begins with S, but that word is significance. Success
Yeah.
is what we do for ourselves. Significance is what we do for other people. Now, don't get me
Others.
wrong. I
Yeah.
think you can be both successful
Yeah.
and significant. But I think this is God's like, look, I gave you this first book. All right, we're going to try another one and see where that goes. And honestly, Ken, I've probably given away more of my first book that I've actually sold because
Yeah.
it was never about getting rich or famous or
Yeah.
anything.
Yep.
It was about making a difference. And I think
Yeah.
the second book is probably even more about making a difference in people's lives.
From the title alone, Terry, and I could tell that it will, and from your journey, I can tell that it will. And we're going to stay in touch. And again, all you guys that have been listening to us, I'm going to provide everything for you to get access to, Terry. Those books, as I mentioned to you, purchase, buy it, give it to people as gifts. You yourself read it. And we're going to have him have access so you can have access to him. If you guys have any questions, especially those that are listening to her, maybe you had a diagnosis of cancer and so forth, and you just need a voice, I'm sure Terry will make himself available to help you and talk with you as that. So you're afforded to go do that. But we'll give you everything for you to get access to him, because I need you to, because I believe that from his knowledge and his wisdom and his insight, you are going to be changed, but you have to trust what he says because he has been through it and he's on the other side. Sometimes it's just being obedient and surrendering. Terry, thank you so much for coming to Threads, man. This has been really good one.
Well, good, Ken. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Welcome.